Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. We have the only other coach in the business that is more attractive than me, Mr. Samuel Bates. How you doing, my brother?
Dude, I'm doing good. A little bit flustered, but I couldn't be more excited to be on here with you and finally getting to see you face to face like this.
For sure, for sure. Guys, before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, dreamchasers.com, for sponsoring the podcast. Sam, what I like to do is I like to let my guests kind of start their story where they go, and then you kind of go from there. So wherever you want to start, my brother.
All right. So first and foremost, the number one thing in my life is my family. I'm a husband and a father, and that's kind of my biggest and only why. I've had more failures than I have successes, but through those failures, it's equipped me to know a lot more about what success could and should look like. And within the last year, I've really transitioned to a position where I want to take the tools and the things that I've learned and help other people get everything they want out of life. I focus a lot on death and mortality, and the thought of not living my most fulfilled life freaks me out. Mm-hmm. And a part of that, it makes me want to just help other people, like I cannot even imagine getting to the end of it all and knowing I held something back, that I still had gas in the tank. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is it? Ed Milet said, I saw him speak, and he said that my fear, he's like, my greatest fear is that I get to the end of the road at the pearly gates, and God shows me who I was meant to be. And I stand there and look at that guy, and he says, way to fucking go, Ed. Like, yeah. You did it. Right. And that for me has always stuck with me, like real hardcore.
Dude, I'm with you. Every time I hear Ed Milet say that, I'm like, yeah, is that guy I meet at the end going to look exactly like me and be exactly like me? Or are we not even going to know each other? And that would sicken me.
Yeah, truth. So what do you, I know there's a couple different things you do. You're a coach. We've been talking through Instagram for a while, but kind of tell us your story on your what you do on your day job and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So in my current job, I'm in outside sales for a local material handling company. So I'm selling forklifts and equipment that moves basically our entire infrastructure of the world. Right. Mm-hmm. And that is the 9 to 5. I chose outside sales because there is really no such thing as a 9 to 5. I don't clock in. I don't clock out. I earn, for the most part, in line with the effort I put in. Mm-hmm. And so I'm on a commission plan. And honestly, man, this role, the outside sales role, the full commission role, was really the catalyst for me taking control of my life in regards to betting on myself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll dive into that more in just a minute, because it really was the game changer. But I ran 2 companies. And when I say I ran them into the ground, but I learned a lot from them.
Yes. Me and you both, baby.
So in June of last year, I told the wifey, I said, hey, we got to get you a business going too. You need to have something of your own. And we need to set a really great example for our daughter, that it's not just the dad who's out there hustling. I want her to see that mama can kill it. So she started a business in June, and I help her. I basically consult on and act as a partner in that business with her. And it's killing it, dude. Seemingly the things that I try don't work so well. But when I help other people do things, they exceed their own expectations and my own. So I'm really
What's that movie, Good Luck Chuck, where he keeps dating the women and they get married? You're the entrepreneur version of that. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I'm going to have to coin that.
Hey, you want to be famous and successful? Work with me. I promise you. Yeah.
My middle name's Charles and my dad's name was Chuck. So I might have to roll with Good Luck Chuck when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And
Love
so, but I would imagine through helping her in her business, you're starting to identify things that you could do. Because I know you do coaching and side hustle. So I
Yeah.
would imagine that you're kind of like, it's the same thing. And I would ask you, because I know you help people.
Yeah.
People always think like, man, you're always helping people. But what they don't understand is that when I'm helping them, I'm working out my own problems as well, too.
Exactly. I mean, it's funny you say that because, I post videos pretty often. And I've told people, like, I have to vocalize my issues and my frustrations.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of time I'm actually talking to myself.
Yeah. So true story. I'll get some people that message me or text me when I do a rant, and they're like, dude, are you okay? Like, you're so fucking angry. And I'm like, I'm talking to my 17-year-old self. But here's what's crazy. My mom called me, and my mom was like, oh, I know that's not you. You're not really mad. She goes, you're talking to your younger self. And I go, see, my mom gets it. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we're probably in the same where, like, when we get passionate, when we're enthused about something, I start getting louder and louder. And my wife's like, why are you yelling at me? I'm like, I'm not yelling. I'm fired up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny. And so, I've heard your story. I've heard your story on your Instagram. I've heard your story. I think people would get a lot of value in kind of when you decided to switch from base pay to a little commission to full commission. That was I remember listening to that like 5 a.m. in the morning. It really stuck with me.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, backing it up, dude, I got married young. I was 21. My wife was 19. And it was just kind of, we'd been together a minute and thought, hey, if we're going to be together forever, we might as well start now. And had really no direction, but I knew that I wanted to do some form of sales. So I kept getting into hourly sales roles. But when we had a kid, all of a sudden the hourly sales role didn't make sense anymore. So I had to get a new job that had a new hourly wage, right? And then that fit my needs. It basically got me back to a level of comfort because the discomfort pushed me into a position where I had to get uncomfortable to go get a new job and develop new skills. And I progressively did that, man. New child, new job, new house, new job, need a new car, get a new job. And it was like this freaking cycle. I'm like, man, and I knew, like, I'm good at this. And I've invested in myself. I've bought the books. I've done the courses. I follow the right people, but I'm too pussy to take a chance on myself. And it's affecting my family. And it was a burden that I wore, and I told nobody about it. But I would look at my wife and kids and be like, man, I could be doing more for you, but I'm not. And I'm not because I'm afraid. And I'm afraid to bet on myself. That's all this is. Commission's not scary. Commission's the greatest thing ever. But I was so afraid. So needless to say, my son got hospitalized right after birth, and the medical bills just piled up on top of an income that wasn't sufficient as it was. Like, just being completely vulnerable here, man, I was financing our entire lives on a credit card, and I wasn't telling my wife about it because I was too proud of the fact that I can provide, that I didn't tell her, hey, we can't afford the clothes you're buying. I hope you don't go too hard at the grocery store this week because we don't got it, And I'd make up excuses. Hey, use the credit card. We're getting miles and stuff. We weren't getting miles. I was just being a douche. So anyways, the money was just not there. And I knew the only chance I have, because I've gotten new job after new job after new job, is to bet on myself. And I stepped into that commission role. And I've never been more terrified than I was the whole month that I started. I felt like a failure. I would honestly, as a grown man, cry during the day in between sales calls because I was so freaked out that I'm like, if I don't get this right the first time, we're losing our house. And I have to tell my wife, hey, not only are we in massive debt that you didn't know about, but everything's gone. And man, I still remember, like, I walked out the back porch of our house and I called the operations manager and said, hey, what did I make this month? I kind of need to give my wife some clarity. And when he said the number, I'm like, was that like before my commission? He's like, no, that's your commission. And I had almost 2.5 times my monthly income right then and there. And then I got to go inside and tell my wife, like, hey, you wouldn't believe it, but this is how much we've made this month. And from there, man, like, not that I attach my value or my worth to money, but I do attach it to my ability to provide for my family. Mm-hmm. And instantaneously, when I realized, man, I bet on myself, and not only did I win, but I kicked some ass. My confidence went sky high. It was within like 6 months. The kids were in activities we couldn't afford before. The wife was out of her dumpy car, and I got her a brand new Subaru. Like, and these weren't just like lifestyle changes because, hey, I'm making some more money now, so I'm going to adjust my income to match my lifestyle, or vice versa. It was necessary. Yeah. Like, but I mean, literally, my confidence grew, and that allowed me to sell better and make more, and the commission continued to grow. Right.
You know what's interesting about men in general, and I'll use it from a real estate confidence point of view. Mm-hmm. We read books, we go to seminars, we talk to friends, we watch other people do real estate. You have an idea in your head, you want to execute on the idea. And so what I try to tell all the young kids is your first couple deals are practice. And so when I bought a property off market that I hunted down for 9 months for 50 grand, and then we put 50 grand in and did the remodel ourselves. And then we rented it out on Airbnb for 2 years, made money. And then we sold the house for a $90,000 profit, right? Split between me and my ex-father-in-law. Had nothing to do with the money. It had to do with the validation of seeing an idea through from start to finish.
Yeah.
And that confidence can never go away because you've done it once. And I would imagine getting that commission check had nothing to do with the money. It was purely the confidence factor that you needed to springboard into another atmosphere.
Dude, 150%. Because it was literally like these dominoes started falling. Like I got that bigger commission check, and then the next month it followed, and the next month it followed. And then I was getting an award at work for being the Salesman of the Year, where because of my personality and just the way I am, being a type A high achiever, is I thought I sucked. I actually quit that job 4 months later because I'm like, I just don't feel like I'm doing a good enough job. And they're like, what do you mean? You have the largest territory. You've just, the guy who's been here for 3 years asked, he's quitting because you've made him look so bad. What do you mean you're doing terrible? I'm like, I thought I was a failure.
Well, it's funny that you say that. My other podcast that we have about stoicism and psychology of success, we talked about this yesterday. We talked about that we as high achievers, you and I, who we are, like my girlfriend the other day was like, you know, you do understand that yesterday you interviewed people in Spain, France, Australia, and like this dude from a hedge fund, like has your phone number, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just being me because that's the high achiever's biggest concern is gratitude in the moment of what we're doing, because for us, it's just whatever, right?
It's never good enough.
Yeah. And so you have to base your kind of, your daily habits are more like your week around like growth. Like I know you're like me. If I'm not reading or growing, I'm dying. Like there's no in between. Like I'm always on a different topic. Like right now I'm studying behavioral investing, like why people buy stuff. And it's one of the most intriguing things about the stock market. True story. You'll love this.
Yeah.
They ran a study for 2 years. There was a judge that would hand out 98% convictions from 10 o'clock to 11:30 in the morning when he was hungry for lunch. And then afterwards at 2 o'clock from 5, he gave people 60% or 50% off of their convictions.
Wow. That's wild. So you want to make sure you're getting in front of that judge. That's not deep.
But what that tells you is that if you tell me that decisions aren't based off emotions or a false trigger, you're fucking lying to me.
100%.
Because even the way that you said, here's what's interesting. Even the way you felt about putting stuff on credit card and not letting your wife know, there's no part of you that's a mean person. You weren't doing it because you wanted to hide shit from her. You were doing it out of shame and guilt, right? And you thought you were doing good, but what it was doing, because I've done the same thing with alcoholism and drug addiction, is you're you're eroding your internal confidence day in and day out by false narratives and lying to your wife.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I lived in my own personal hell that I was creating. And above and beyond it was the dishonesty to my wife. Like when I finally came out and said, hey, by the way, we're thousands of dollars in debt because we haven't been able to do what we've been doing for the last few months. First off, it felt good to get that off my chest. But I also was able to approach her in a way that I knew she'd be pissed and disappointed, and rightfully so. And I had to eat a tremendous amount of shit based on that without any judgment or frustration on my part, right? Like, can't be being mad at me for that. That's on me. It took 2 years before she let me take back the finances of our household. Even though we were doing well financially, she's like, I need to, and now I've got control of them again, but I blew it, and I blew it for a long time.
So what would, before we step on to the next subject, this is one of my favorite questions I ask all my guests. As you sit here today, Samuel, what would you tell the guy that wasn't on commission? What would you tell that guy on the other side of this mountain where the family's happy, the debt's cleared, you're making money? What would you tell the dude that was scared to go on commission? What advice would you give him?
Okay, I would have him ask himself 2 questions. Your first question would be, Mr. Guy who's afraid to go on commission, what is the worst possible thing that could happen if you went full-blown commission? Like, seriously, pen and paper, what's the absolute worst thing that could happen? Okay, now, what's the absolute best thing that could happen? What's the best case scenario of you going on a full-blown commission and being able to earn not only your worth, but potentially even more so? And then I'd say, which one of those do you want to give attention and focus to? Because whichever one you give attention to focus to is the one that's going to happen.
Powerful. Love it. So you're making commission, your wife starts a business. Kind of walk us through kind of what's been going on the last couple of years and what you're working on.
Yeah. So from that commission role, just to continue to lay those dominoes, I had waited 7 years to actually do anything. Man, I was reading books, listening to podcasts, and being basically what Andy Frisella calls a success zombie. I had all the answers. I'd read all the books. I had a notepad, man, full of notes that I'd taken from all the guys. And you know what the pressing number one thing that it said in there was? Take action. Action cures anxiety. Anything like that. And yet I waited, honest to God, 7 years before I did anything. But once I did that commission job, all of a sudden, 3 months later, I started my first business. And I started it, and I'm like, this is what I waited 7 years for. Like this, I made this out to be some boogeyman, and it was literally filing an LLC, buying a piece of equipment and reselling it because my was equipment. And I'm like, this is it. This is what I held myself up for 7 years for. But once I started that one, I realized, guess what? You don't have all the answers because you get the answers by taking action and doing it, right? Like learn every day, even in my ways to be better. I learn every day in my wife's business things to do. And usually I learn them by doing the wrong thing and not wasting money because I learned something from it, but there's no failures, there's lessons, right? So later that year, I started another business with it was an apparel company. And then I just had people coming to me and saying, hey, I want to do something, but I'm afraid. I'm like, afraid of what? And they would hit me with their fears. I'm like, man, you are so in your own way. And then it started being the same thing. Just the excuse was different, or the fear, their doubt, their disbelief was different. But it was so easily met with, like, I had a lady who said, oh, I'm so afraid to start my business because what if nobody buys it? And I just said, well, what if everybody buys it? And then this big smile came across her face. She's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, shit, quit focusing on the negative. Quit focusing on what could go wrong and really start focusing on what can go right. Because when you understand even a minute amount of the power of your brain, your conscious, and what you focus on, you'll cut the negative shit. It just, there's no space for it, right? So yeah, I got the wife's business rocking and rolling now, and she's doing great at it. And I'm just really diving deep and immersing myself in this coaching thing because, like we said in the beginning, man, like I'm getting a lot of my own help in doing this. And I'm just mission driven, bro. I'm incredibly empathetic, and I freaking love people. Like when I'm driving in the car, I hate them, but in real life, in everyday life, I love them and I want to help them. I want to see them succeed and grow and live up to their potential. With side note, for about the last 3 years, I've assumed everybody wants what I want. And I think I've gone wrong that way. Yeah. Because I talk to people, I'm like, hey man, we want lots of money, right? We want a nice house. We want nice cars. We want fat bank accounts. And I'd get people like, no, I don't. I'm like, well, you're lying. You're lying to me and you're lying to yourself. They're like, no, legitimately, I want mediocre everything. And that's my idea of fulfillment. So I'm really transitioning into recognizing that people have their own wants, needs, and desires. And my job and my intention is just to help them achieve that.
The number one thing that high performers have to deal with, and it's probably the hardest thing that will ever get done. Once again, my mom is very wise. She says that, and I went through it and I've kind of moved on past it, but understanding that what we seek is not what they seek, and having peace with that and not letting it run us, right? Like, cause I get super frustrated, when like people reach out for help and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to help you. And they don't show up to the call. Like, and I'm just like pissed off. Like, this was your opportunity. Like I could change your,
Yeah.
But understanding that, like, if they're going to come to me for coaching, like they need to be 100% ready. Like when they're officially ready to jump in, then it's time to work. But forcing them to come work with me or like trying to get them in when they're not ready is going to do both. It's going to be bad for both parties. Like you have to be bought in, right? And I'd be interested to see what you think, because this is the number one question I get in coaching is they say, what's the common trait that you see in everybody? What's your answer to that, to your coaching clients?
Like what's the number one trait I see in coaching clients?
Just like kind of what's the number one thing that they're struggling with is probably the question I get asked probably 3 times a day. And I'm very quick to my answer, so I'd be curious to see what yours is.
My immediate answer was a disbelief in themselves.
So mine is self-love. Yeah. It's the truth. Doesn't matter if you're 40, 23, doesn't matter if you're in health insurance, real estate, doesn't matter if you're an esthetician. No, everybody's playing small.
Yes.
On their own gifts.
100%, dude.
And so what do you tell somebody in that space? What advice are you giving? I mean, everybody's different, but kind of just an overall view of what you're telling them.
I mean, dude, I lead by asking questions. I know nobody likes to be talked at. So I ask questions, well, what is it that you want? Why is it that you want it? Because again, that why is a big part of it. And then I just continue down that progression of asking questions. And it's really interesting because some people can just figure it out themselves when they get asked the right questions, right? In a sales position, man, why I'm so successful in sales, it's because I don't talk much. I listen a whole bunch, but I ask better questions. So when I have people who are afraid to start a business, I'm like, why? Do you know somebody who's failed a business? No. Okay. Have you ever failed a business before? No. Okay. So why do you have such a big fear about starting a business? And then you follow me for a while, man. I just like polarity. I like give your negative and I'm going to give you the quick turn on the positive.
Yeah.
And it's literally, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it is so simple. It's a mindset shift, right? Like the power of the mind is massive, as you know, but like the way you feel when I say, hey man, what's the best thing that could happen? And the emotional dump that you'll get, and maybe some butterflies in your stomach, and maybe you'll perk up a little bit and you'll get a smile on your face, versus I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? And you'll slump down and you'll start to get a little sick and you'll be like, oh, I don't know. It's like, man, which one makes you feel better? which one, like if you died tomorrow, would you rather die this grumpy, lonely, depressed, never taking a chance guy that you're being right now? Or do you want to be the guy who went for it all?
What I try to tell people is I say, regardless of your plight, regardless if you're in a shitty marriage, regardless if you don't love your boss, what's the decision that you would make if all were equal?
Yeah.
Make that decision, because here's something that I think you would relate to. And this is a very hard concept to understand.
Yeah.
But when I lay it out, people get it. Let's say me and you were coaching and you were like, Austin, I'm in debt. I hate my job, all these things. I ask you what you want, what your dreams are. And then I go coach that guy a year from now.
Yes.
And they go, why are you talking to me this way? And I'm like, because I'm pulling you to be that person. I'm not coaching you back here. I've already saw you lose 90 pounds. I've already saw you have a wife. I've already saw you sell your business. And I'm manifesting that and I'm pulling you along. But here's another trick I do. I'm giving away all my gifts. I think this is the most powerful thing I've ever done with my coaching clients. There are versions of ourselves that we can't stand, that don't serve us. And what my character was Tasmanian devil. So 20 years old, a ton of energy, jerk off, chasing deals, scarcity, like not millionaires didn't want to be around that guy. So I created a new guy. And that was me at 45. And his name was Clint Eastwood. And Clint Eastwood had the cigar and deals came to him and he had everything he wanted, right? Yeah. And so what I do with my clients is we say who that character is that doesn't serve them. We give them a stupid name. Like he gave his character's name Todd, right? Todd. And so what I told him is I said, every time that those things come up in you, say, oh, that's just Todd. And what it does, right? I learned this from addiction. What it does is it removes your identity around you being that person, and you disassociate yourself with that person. And eventually you walk into this new character and you've removed your identity. That's why people can't change, because their identity is wrapped up into said character. But when you trigger it away from it, you're slowly getting away from that identity. And then you just step into the new version of yourself.
Dude, that's powerful.
Yeah. It's an amazing technique. It works every time. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's huge. And I actually, not that long ago, shared my view on identity and people.
I would love to hear it.
So I had made a thing about, don't attach your identity to something superficial that could be taken away from you. Like, identify as the person that you are and the person that you want to be, right? So like I would identify as a father, because nothing can actually ever change that. If God willing, something ever happened to my kids, I am still a father and I fathered my children, right? But I identify as character traits that I'm proud of. So I'm honest, I'm full of integrity, I'm an ambitious individual. That's my identity. I do not identify as, for instance, like a fitness junkie necessarily. Because guess what? I could have an incident that allowed me to not go to the gym anymore. And if I tied my identity to the guy who goes to the gym and the gym gets taken away from me, I would crumble. And I saw that happen with people in COVID. Man.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
I don't know who I am. And I'm like, man, who are you? Not the superficial shit about you going to the gym. Like people in a profession, like I identify as a lawyer. Well, that's great. What happens if something bad happens and you're no longer a lawyer? You have no clue who you are. So be these superficial things, have superficial titles like a lawyer, like a bodybuilder, whatever. But identify as your, I guess, most highly regarded character traits that you're proud of. Because again, you look that person in the mirror. I don't see a salesman. I don't see even a coach. I see a man with integrity and honesty and empathy and good intention, right? So that's my identity. Nobody can take that.
100%. I think one of the qualities about you that I love the most, and you've even admitted to me, is like you don't know a ton about real estate. And I seen that you're a champion of staying in your lane. Like you're like, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then Austin's going to tell me where to put my money in the real estate. And I think too many people are trying to be everything.
Yeah.
Right. I don't mess with stocks. Like I don't know stocks. Like I refuse. I don't care if everybody's making millions of dollars. if I got out my skis on that, I would lose a bunch of money because I have no idea what I'm doing. Is that kind of a trait that you take on, is kind of stay in your lane?
I'm going to say, yeah, but I'm going to give you the honest answer to why that is. And it's because I still to this day struggle to ask for help. Now, and that's just me being 100% vulnerable, bro. I will help anybody and everybody that asks me. And that may be one of my downfalls, because when I want to get somebody involved in long-term coaching, they're like, no, bro, you'll help me anytime I need it. I know it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's for a second conversation, me and you offline. Yeah.
But I still struggle to ask for help. So I do stay in my lane, but it's because not of an unwillingness to deviate, but what I don't know, I'm just going to go try to figure out myself in the shadows. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say I will not. I make the choice to not ask for help. And that's something I am honestly working on. Like, and I only asked you about that because I know, like, and trust you, but yeah, if I'm doing something great, and I'm like, I would not be like, hey, what are you doing, man? I'd love to know about that. I would like to get involved. I'll sit back and I'll be like, I'll go to work. Let me start reading.
One of my favorite Jim Rome quotes is, he says that what the top 1% does that everybody else doesn't do is they ask.
Uh-huh.
So there's two topics I want to hit with you before we get out, because I cannot get out of here. The last one's going to be about books, because I know you're an avid reader, and I want to share some stuff. But yeah. I know that you just went to a boot camp or a conference of a guy that we both follow, who is a machine. I mean, he's on another level, Michael Burt, and he studies words, which I think is very intriguing. Something I've been studying, like the art of storytelling. That's kind of my new thing right now, is like saying that stuff. So I'd love to hear your takeaways from that trip. It's interesting. I try to tell people sometimes, like, especially with the masterminds I host, you're not really going to meet the speaker. You're going to get in the environment and be around other like-minded individuals. You actually might learn more from the people you're around than the actual speakers of the event.
100%, dude. To touch on that, I did go into that place. I told my wife before I showed up, I said, I will know every single person by name in that room, and they will know who I am, by being interested, not interesting. That was my hope, right? And to your point about that, I went there to network. And do Michael Burt and I message from time to time now? Yes, but I talk to 50% of the people that were in that room on a weekly basis. So yes, the power is in those people in that room, right? Because we're all 1 degree away from each other, whereas Michael Burt is maybe 5 or 10. But the takeaways, man, was getting super, super clear on your message or your concept, and not leading with I think statements, but leading with I believe statements. And that was huge for me. So when I say, hey, I think people have an issue with self-belief and limited beliefs, right? But now if I say I believe, that conveys so much more to you than I think. This is what I believe, and I believe it with conviction. And so if you take your belief and you back it with conviction and you give somebody an action, they're more likely to take it, right? Because the coaching thing was, you've got a concept. How do you monetize it? How do you get it out into the world? And how do you become a person of interest while changing lives in the process, right? So I realized I do work on having strong language. I try not to use the just word, like I'm just reaching out. And so with that, I believe. I don't think, I believe. And here's why I believe it. And because I believe this, I think that you should, or I believe that you should, XYZ, right? I left there fired up with belief and conviction, what I stand for and what I want. And just really driven by the idea of with what I feel like I can offer, I can change lives. And that's what I want to do.
And what people don't understand, and something I've personally had to deal with, and we'll have a separate conversation offline, is it's a lot of energy to go down with people and pick them back up. And I haven't been giving myself enough white space to kind of recharge my own batteries. And I felt myself weaning for a couple of weeks, and I'm better now. Because what happened was, and I've rarely talked about this because I've been so busy, I haven't talked about it much, but do you know who Aubrey Marcus is?
Oh yeah. The guy.
So long story short, I have a friend who is a bodywork guy who works construction, teaches you all this like Reiki and everything. Well, he introduced me to this guy named Ray, and he is the bodywork guy for Aubrey Marcus. And so I am like an iPhone app that is like open at all times. Like I'm doing 8 podcasts a day. I've got 9 coaching calls. And so what I've done with him since mid-January is he comes over once a week and does an hour and a half body work session with meditation music on and teaches me how to stretch and stuff. And I have a lot of negative energy from the divorce and the alcoholism. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to come out. And it's not so much a massage as is like muscle movement, stretching.
Sure. Yeah.
I slip into like a second state of meditation during that time. And that's where my ideas form and everything. And what it's done is when I step out of that thing, I'm a different person. Like, it's like I reset my entire mind, body, and spirit. It's changed my life. And I told him, I said, your work on me is the most important thing on this planet, because if I'm 100% me, then I can go impact millions.
Yes.
So he's actually, and my buddy said this, he's my buddy out in LA, one of my best friends. He said, healers need healers.
Oh, I love that.
It's the truth. We're always helping. We never take the time to stop to ask for help for ourselves.
Absolutely. And even that I take for myself, it's in some way, shape, or form work, right? If I'm like, I'll read a book because I love reading, well, I'm taxing my brain to try to take that in and assimilate. Going to the gym to work out my body, well, that shit's going to hurt, right?
Yeah. No, it's the truth. And so I know that you're a powerful reader. I've seen, we got a lot of young people that listen to my new into the personal development space. Let's spend about 3 or 4 minutes. Maybe your top, I know this is so hard for you, but just maybe 3 different areas, foundational books that you felt kind of shook your core, or I can't even speak, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz was kind of the groundbreaking one to thinking bigger than myself, right? Not thinking bigger than myself in this moment, but thinking bigger than myself in the future. Like, if I started doing work now, what's my big goal? What's my big vision? That was one that I picked it up, and I basically checked out for the 3 hours it took me to read it. I was just hooked. So I think that one's huge in really breaking down the boundaries of what you think is possible. I believe that The One Thing is a really powerful book based on, I think when anybody wants to do anything, what inevitably happens besides limiting beliefs is it feels like there's so much to do. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to start a podcast. Well, crap, I need a microphone and headphones and equipment and Libsyn and all these things. When it's like, if you broke that down from the macro to the micro, what's the one thing that if you did it today would make the biggest impact, right? And taking it one by one by one. And then just going off of the profession that I've got, being sales, New Sales Simplified by Mike Weinberg.
By the way, I'm picking up all these right now, so that's why I'm looking down.
You're good.
What was that last one?
New Sales Simplified by Mike Weinberg. That one changed my sales game in the B2B environment. It gave me the confidence that as a salesperson, I'm not a nuisance to you. I'm not a hindrance, and I'm not an interruption. I'm actually a professional here to assist you in your business in what I believe to be is a better way of doing things. And I quit getting shit on by the gatekeeper. I quit getting my emails not responded to, because from the second I interacted, I had authority and I owned the conversation and I got the opportunity to win the business, right?
Are you familiar with Oren Klaff?
I'm not.
Okay, brother, let me tell you something. I'm about to introduce you to your new man crush. Okay.
Okay.
So this guy is a rainmaker. This is what he does. He negotiates like 40, 100, $80 million deals, and he is a deal weaver. And he's got a book called Pitch Anything.
Okay.
He's got the book I just finished. I'm in the middle of Pitch Anything. He's got a book called Flip the Script. All right. Are you ready? Sam, you're about to get so jazzed up. His entire thing is about sales psychology, right? And hear me out. What he says, when you're pitching somebody, there's 3 brains. There's a crocodile brain, there's a middle brain, and there's the intelligent, like the bigger brain. When we sit down to people and we're being pitched something, the crocodile brain is based on pure survival instincts, old school. And so if you're not engaging and it's not interesting and it's too complicated, they'll close you off right away.
Yes.
And so he teaches a technique to work through the 3 different brains to make them feel like it's their idea that they're selling you.
Yes.
Yeah, Flip the Script and Pitch Anything. Dude, you'll knock those out this weekend. They're like so good. So, yeah.
Wrote them down, so I'll get on those, dude.
So if people want to find out more about what you're doing, they want to get into contact you, how would they do that?
So I'm super active on Instagram. It's Sam Bates _100. You can find me on LinkedIn at Samuel Bates. I'm super active on there too. And then I've got my new website, samuelbatescoaching.com. Opportunity to learn a little bit more about myself. And then realistically, I'm a giver and a helper. So if you guys need something, let me know. But if you also want to just kind of shoot the shit like Austin and I do and talk books, share awesome quotes, send funny videos from time to time, let's do it.
I love it. So listen, I just had an idea. I know we briefly talked about it. And I'll leave it up to you and my other buddy who lives in Utah. But how about either April or September or whatever? How about me and you and him do a 1-day, 3-hour mindset workshop in Utah?
I would love that, man.
Okay, so we'll get a date. How fun would that be, right?
I would be honored to participate in that, man. That would be great.
Dude, I can't thank you enough. I have no idea how we found each other on DMs and Instagram, but I'm honored to have you on the podcast and honored to know you and what you're putting out in this world. So I just can't thank you enough for coming on.
Well, I appreciate you having me on it. I'm honored to have met you and to be a part of this. And let me just back up with this, because one thing I've got that's is a memory unlike any other. So
okay.
I followed you because you followed Coach Burt, and I was trying to snatch some of his followers. I had shared the that book, Outwitting the Devil, and you commented.
Yes, that's right. Dude, that book is I'm about to read it again. I gave it to one of my mentors. He's read it 10 times.
Oh yeah, I tried telling people, I'm like, I can't.
This is the only book you need. And you know what's crazy? I love story. The story behind this book is even greater than the actual book. Guys, if you don't know this book, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, he wrote this in 1931 or 1930, and they kept it in a lockbox for 60 plus years because it was so controversial that they didn't release it. And they only released it like in the the 2000s or 1990. It's a game changer book.
Yeah. So you commenting on that, I was like, whoa, somebody else has read this, So I'm like, okay, it was like the Step Brothers, dude. Did we just become friends? Yep.
I love it. And my goal is to own a property in Utah within the next year. So we're going to make it happen. So right, one of my mentors is buying a house in Park City in a month.
Oh,
so
right on.
It'll be up there. Dude, guys, if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends, because me and Sam could do this for hours. So I got to make sure that we get out of here. But thank you all very much.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.